6:04 on the calendar in the matter of Evgene versus Funger. Parties have been sworn in, Judge.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Funger.
Funger.
And Mr. Evgene.
Correct.
How old are you, sir?
50.
Other than this arrest that you had on this charge of domestic violence, have you ever been arrested?
No.
So this arrest for domestic violence was your first arrest?
For domestic violence, yes.
I'm talking about for anything.
For anything. In 2001, wet reckless.
2001 what?
Wet reckless?
What does that mean?
That is a DUI that was reduced to a wet reckless.
So in 2001, you had one arrest for DUI?
Correct.
Other than that?
That's it.
And how long had you and Miss Funger been a couple?
We met in April of '06 at rehab.
Nature of your addiction was alcohol?
Alcohol, correct.
And yours?
It was pills.
Your complaint alleges that you were arrested for domestic violence. The incident occurred because Miss Funger actually assaulted you while you were driving in the car. It is your claim that ultimately the charges against you were dropped.
Correct.
For lack of evidence. The criminal charges. You allege that Miss Funger filed for a restraining order. She never showed up. That case was dismissed.
Correct.
Then she filed for another restraining order, and she conned you into not going to court on that one. Told you she was going to drop those charges, so you didn't go to court.
Along with a little loving, yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then she did go to court and did, in fact, get a protective order.
Correct.
And you want her to compensate you to the tune of $5,000. Ms. Funger says that you did, in fact, assault her. She's got a counterclaim for her medical bills and punitive damages for the assault. So, I want you to tell me exactly your version of the events, Ms. Funger, of what happened on the 9th of January, because you also have a claim for certain property that you claim she took while the 2 days that you were in jail before the charges were dropped, and a dog that you claim she took that belonged to you. Okay. Go.
Okay. On January 9th, we were on... Sorry, I'm nervous. We went to Pollock Casino, and we meet at people. And that night, he decided not to go to the concert. So he pulled me out, and we went to Temecula Valley.
You said you had been to the concert at the casino.
Halfway.
But you went to the concert.
Right, but only halfway.
Okay. And then he wanted to leave. You were driving the car back, and?
And he was drunk.
Yes.
And he was on drugs.
And?
And then I was yelling and screaming.
And what about you?
I had 4 drinks.
And what about pills?
Nope.
Just alcohol?
Yeah, correct.
I have proof she had pills that night.
What kind of proof do you have?
A week before that, she got 120 somas by forging my doctor's signature.
But how can you prove that she had pills in her system that night?
Her actions, her behavior, it just goes from what she's...
That's not proof. Go ahead.
When we got to, actually, between Pollock Casino and Temecula Valley, he hit my head against the wall, or against the window. I was unconscious. And then he kept hitting me. He restrained me. And then the next thing I know was the police were there.
Okay. Go ahead.
Back from the concert, she didn't want to go. She wanted to stay. And with this new friend she had met, party with them, and we were arguing. And then I'm driving, and she attacks me. I have pictures of my face being scratched. And
you wanted to leave the concert early?
I don't think so. No, we left early, but I didn't want to leave early. No.
Do you remember why?
I think it's because the couple that she'd met started making inappropriate remarks towards, like, maybe you guys could sleep in our room tonight and things like that. And I didn't want to stick around.
When had you been drinking that day?
Pretty much from noon until the concert,
And when had the defendant been drinking that day?
Along with me all day long, yeah.
So you were drinking home and you were driving while you were drinking?
No, I wasn't driving while I was
Not while you were drinking, but you had been drinking all day and you got behind the wheel of the car.
That is correct.
So what happened in the car, if you remember?
Oh, I remember. Very nice. She attacked me. I pulled over because it almost
Tell me how
wrecked.
she attacked you.
She came across my face and scratched me. And I.
Well, what were you arguing about that caused that?
Just that she wanted to stay and I didn't. And she was being just the normal self that she always is when she takes her pills. And I didn't want to, have to take care, because she can't walk or talk after a certain amount of them, and I have to take care of her. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I pull over into a parking lot and try to calm her down. She's running around the parking lot screaming, out of control. I can't calm her down. People call the cops. They come and they arrest me. And then they get
Do you have a police report?
She did.
I'd like
I
to
never
see the
got
police
one.
report.
I never did get a police report.
I'd like to see the police report, and I would also like to see the pictures.
Here's the proof of the pills, too. She just got 120 more of them 2 weeks ago. That's probably why she can't stand up.
No.
You on pills now, Miss Funger?
No, I haven't been.
You willing to take a drug test?
I'm willing to.
Hair follicle test?
Sure.
We'll arrange for that.
Mr. Evgene has been taking drugs.
I'm just asking you, are you prepared to take a hair follicle test?
Yes.
Today?
Yes.
And you will either be exonerated or humiliated. Don't waste my time. Don't waste his time. If you've taken any drugs, it's going to show up in your hair follicle. Do you get it?
Yes.
Okay? And you would agree that if you lied to me about using drugs now, so you don't have any pills in your system, that I would have serious reservations about everything else that you told me. Do you understand
Correct.
that?
You can test Mr. Evgene, too.
I'm just asking you.
Okay.
His behavior is not bizarre. Yours is.
I'm very nervous.
That's not nerves. That's more than nerves.
Amen.
Been in the business a long time.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Robert Evgene says his ex-fiancée, Kimberly Fonger, owes for a false arrest and for the return of his property and his dog. Kimberly is countersuing for medical bills from an assault.
Well, so according to the police, you were both drunk as skunks that day. Both of you. According to the police, you both had visible signs of injury. You had a bloody lip, and he had bloody scratches on his face. They decided to arrest him, right?
Correct.
You deserve to be arrested. You were driving drunk. Mm-hmm. You had a fight with her. So your statement that her behavior caused you to be arrested, that's not true. She may have contributed to it, but your own behavior caused you to be arrested.
Her behavior was the one
Your
that...
own behavior caused you to be arrested, sir. If you were not drunk, you wouldn't have been put in that situation.
If she had not called attention to everybody and had the cops call...
You're ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That's what happens when you drink and drive.
I understand that, but I could have
That's what happens when you drink and drive.
could have sat in my truck all night and no one would know I've been drunk, unless someone called them. And she's the one that had
Or
them.
unless you hit somebody who was traveling with their 4 children in a car.
That's another story.
That's another story. I have zero
Tolerance.
sympathy for you.
I understand that.
Zero sympathy for you. I have less sympathy for you. But right now, I'm telling you right now, my inclination is to let you, if you're sober now, terrific, but to let you two drunks who were drunk on January 9th go your own way, and whatever happened to you that day, that's it. He was injured, you were injured, he got to spend some time in jail, had to bail himself out, lost a dog, lost some property, which, by the way, you have his property?
No. It's mine.
What property did she take?
The dog, the TV, the VCR, the bed.
How long had you been living together?
3 years.
I'm not bothering with it. That's your problem.
The dog, though, is like a kid. You can't take a kid from you. It's like taking a kid from you. How do you do
You've
that?
been living together for 3 years, is that right?
I paid for everything. It's my dog.
How long have you had the dog?
2.5 years.
Good. Can I see the medical records, please?
Yes. As well, this is the AKC, and it's
This is the
wrong.
medical records.
Yes.
That's what she has.
Thank
And
you.
Your Honor, I have a tape that says the dog's mine.
I don't care what you have. I just told him he's not getting the dog back. This is not the hospital record, madam. This is not a medical record. This tells you what to do in case you have serious vomiting or worsening or a headache or whatever. I'm not interested in that.
That's from the hospital.
Well, it's not enough for me. Will you pass this back to her, please? He had a swollen lip, he had a scratched face. Sounds to me as if you two people who were intoxicated in a car got exactly what you both deserved. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was just waiting to happen. It was one of those relationships that, you meet in rehab, and they tell you not to date, and they're right. You don't do it.
Don't meet a man in rehab.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Frith versus Austin, step forward.
19-year-old Kimberly Frith is suing her mother, Ruth Austin, for spending a settlement check for an injury she received as a young girl.
Miss Frith, this is your mom.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint alleges that when you were a youngster, 6,
Yes, ma'am.
you were bitten by a dog.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a lawsuit filed, and there was a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents got the settlement, your mother and your father. Your parents are divorced now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you turned 18, your father gave you half of
We settled out of court.
settlement.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want the other half from your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
And your mother says that that money was just used to live.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have the paperwork on the settlement?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
I am 19.
And you live with whom?
Well, I'm staying with my father right now. I'm in the process of moving.
What are you doing?
I'm an in-home support specialist. I work with handicapped children.
Okay. So after the attorney was paid, the entire amount was $2,641. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how you resolved this with your father.
We settled because he's been paying my cell phone bill for the past 2 years, and I've been staying with him, not paying any rent.
When did you make the arrangement with him with regard to paying your cell phone bill as a quid pro quo of this money?
When I turned 18, because my father also had spent $1,000 of my money when my grandfather passed away, and when I turned 18, he started paying the cell phone bill, and I asked him if he would help me out to go to school, and I'm actually in the process of going to school, and he's given me some money for that.
Well, this money was put into a bank account, was it not, Miss Austin?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Back then, we had no money. We lived in motels. I worked 2 different jobs. Her dad worked shows, flea markets, whatever, and we just didn't have any money.
Was there anything in the paperwork that directs that this money be placed in an interest-bearing account for your benefit?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you have her read it to me? Read to me the part of that you believe directs that this money be placed in an interest-bearing account for you. I don't see that in your paperwork, but if you believe that it's there, I'm asking you to read it to me, Miss Frith.
Ma'am.
Just read it to me.
The undersigned understand that the parties hereby release admit no liability of any sort by reason of said accident, and that said payment and compromise is made to terminate further controversy respecting all claims for damages that said minor or undersigned have heretofore asserted or might personally.
Correct. That's a general release. That means that your parents, on behalf of themselves and you, release the person who owned the dog from any further lawsuits.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all that says.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't say that your parents are obligated to put the money in an interest-bearing account and turn it over to you when you're 18. If you had bills, if you had anything that was related to the dog bite, that money could be used for that, if they wished. I'm looking for a legal hook for you, and I don't see it.
Ma'am, what I was told is that if
You can't tell me what you were told. What you were told is hearsay.
If the money was not spent on me, then it shouldn't have been spent.
Is that what you think?
That's what I've seek legal counsel, and that's what I've been.
That's hearsay, and I can't help you with
She
it.
wasn't. They weren't living in a motel at the time.
I don't care whether they were or not.
It would have been put in an interest-bearing account if they actually taken it to court, but they just released the check believing that my parents would do what they were supposed to do.
Well, they didn't.
They didn't, and I'm upset.
I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're upset.
Yes, ma'am.
But what I'm telling you is you don't have a legal basis to be upset. You have a moral basis to be upset, but you don't have a legal basis to be upset. Your parents signed off on it, probably selfishly and stupidly, both of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Because this was fast money, and they didn't have to wait for the matter to go to trial, where they might have gotten some more money, but then the court would have been involved in setting up what they call a structured settlement for a minor. And the structured settlement for the minor would have said this money has to go into a certain kind of account and can only be touched in case of absolute necessity. Parents make mistakes all the time, and they act selfishly all the time, and that's what your mother and your father did. But that doesn't mean that you have a legal claim against your mother for half the money.
Well, that's what I believe the parents' release and indemnity agreement was.
No. Parents' release just says that they release the owner of the dog from any further liability in consideration of the $4,000 less attorney's fees.
Well,
That's all
I'm
it
the
says.
one that's left with the scars. They're not.
You're absolutely right. I said to you, you have a reason to be morally distressed, but not legally distressed. So, I understand your position, and I understand your consternation. What I don't understand is, I don't consider it a big deal that your father has paid your phone bill. And I don't think it's a big deal that your father has let his daughter live in his house when she's 17 and 18 years old, rent-free. That's not a big deal. If I could have gotten away with that with my children, I would be dancing a big old dance right now. And if your father is going to help you pay for school, that's what your father is supposed to do.
And that's what my mother's
That's
also
what your
supposed to
father
do.
is supposed to do.
My mother's
and if your mother
also
is
supposed
able,
to
just
do
a
that.
second, and if your mother is able to, and she's not doing it, then she's not a good mother. That's not what we have courts for. What I'm telling you is your father is supposed to do whatever he's been doing for you.
And I have been helping, ma'am.
Well, I don't know how
You've been helping, putting me in debt.
Just a second. Clearly, your daughter is angry with you for
She's very
something.
angry. Yes, ma'am.
For
She's very
something,
angry.
which I'm not getting into now
Right.
because, quite frankly, I don't care why she's angry with you.
Right.
Sometimes teenage girls get angry with their mother, and they don't get happy with their mother until they're 30. And they stay happy with their father just because. That's what happens.
Right.
That what happens? Yeah, sometimes.
That's what happens.
In any event, your father doesn't deserve any kudos for doing what he's supposed to do. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's supporting his child. How long have your parents been divorced?
9 years.
And who did you live with initially?
Well, we stayed with our mom, but I just
For how
ventured
long?
out with friends.
For how long did you stay with your mother?
I was 11 when I was about a year.
And after the year?
I moved in with some friends.
When you were how old?
12, 13, ma'am.
Yeah, that's
No.
worth.
No.
You may have spent a lot of time with your friends, but
No.
I don't believe that when you were 11 or 12 years old, you moved in with
She
friends.
lived with me.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
all right, Ms. Frith, I'm sorry, but you don't have a claim against your mother. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. Yeah, it's case number 556 on the calendar in the matter of Robichon versus Farley.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat.
All right, Ms. Robichaud, you could sit down because you weren't there during this incident.
No.
And Mr. and Mrs. Farley, similarly, I'm just going to have your son step up.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
If I need you, we'll come back. Mr. Robichaud, you and the Farleys are neighbors. And young Mr. Farley, and you, I gather, friendly, and he'd done some work for you. Yard work, is that
Yeah.
right? On November 12th of 2008, you were on your way to pick up your son from school, and according to your complaint, asked young Mr. Farley here whether he would like to take a ride with you.
Yes.
During the ride to school to pick up your son, is this your son?
Yes.
There was a road rage incident. You were driving your car. You're going to tell me what happened during that incident. Subsequently, it is your claim that Mr. Farley came to your house and punched your truck, causing damage. Mr. Farley acknowledges that he punched your truck, but he says that was only after you punched him in the face, giving him a swollen eye, which required medical treatment, and Mr. Farley's parents, on his behalf, are counterclaiming for that assault. That's what the case is about. So, Mr. Robichaud, why don't you first tell me what happened on the way to pick up your son at school?
Okay, we were going down Clayton Road, and I went to get over a lane, and this gentleman had beeped his horn, so I got back into my lane, and he pulled up beside me. He reached
You cut somebody off.
Yeah, I cut somebody off.
Well, that's what you say in your complaint, Mr. Robichaud. I
Accidentally cut somebody
I
off.
accidentally cut somebody off.
Exactly. And he got upset and was beeping the horn, and he pulled up beside me and reached in his glove box, in which he pulled out this taser gun, but at the time I thought it was a gun. So I had slammed on my brakes and let him go by, and the road veered to the right, so I veered to the right and he went straight. Then I proceeded to go to my son's school.
Take your hands out of your pockets.
And when we got there, this gentleman was there. He had jumped out of his car and had hit a taser gun in his hand.
Oh, just a minute. So you're waiting at school?
No, we just pulled up.
Where did you pull up?
We pulled up right in front of the school. It's a street right in front of the school. It's right.
Mr. Robichaud, I'm a pretty savvy lady. I read your complaint very carefully. I'm going to ask you a question again.
Sure.
Did you pull up a block away from school near this car, or did you pull up in front of the school where there would have been a whole bunch of other cars?
Well, it actually.
Well, I don't want to hear well, Mr. Robichon. I want to hear whether you pulled up a block away from school.
No, it's not really a block away from school.
How far away from school was it?
1 street away from school.
That's a block away, sir.
That's fine, a block away.
You pulled up a block away, and you pulled up a block away seeing this other, look at me, seeing this other car that you had just cut off, parked there.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Mr. Farley,
Yes, ma'am.
when you pulled up at that street, did you see the other car?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Robichon say anything about the other car?
Not that I remember, but he did say, here's the guy walking towards us.
Now, what happened when you saw this man walking towards you?
I pulled over, and then I started to go, and he jumped out of the car, out of the truck.
Say this very slowly. Man is walking towards you.
Yeah, so we had pulled over to the curb, just about to the curb,
Why?
because everybody was stopping to pick up their children.
You pulled up to the curb when you saw the man coming towards you, or before?
Before.
So now you're at the curb and this man is coming towards you. Does he have anything in his hand?
Yes, he has a
Did the man have anything in his hand?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did he have?
A taser?
Did you jump out of the car? Is not an
Yes,
answer.
ma'am. Sorry.
You got out of the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
See what the guy wanted. I was talking to him. I didn't run up or nothing arguing with him. I said, what's going on? Because I saw him walking towards the truck.
Did he respond to you?
He goes, what the guys doing that what you did? I said, sorry, sir. You know, we're late. Pick up his son. He started getting mad, and then Mr. Robichaud got out of the truck, too. Then all of us started arguing, and he grabbed a big board from the back of his truck.
Who did?
Mr. Robichaud.
Now, when they were arguing, what were they saying?
What the just cussing each other out, trying to figure out, just arguing pretty much over some stupid stuff that happened with the road rage incident.
Were you late picking up the boy from school?
We were late leaving, but by the time we got there, we were early.
You were late leaving so that you were trying to make up time on the road.
Yes.
And that's when you cut off this guy. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. So far, you tell the truth and I won't annihilate you. Do you understand? Okay. Did this gentleman ever pick up this taser and point it in your direction?
Yes.
When?
When I was outside the truck, when he was walking towards me.
Is that when Mr. Robichaud got out of the truck and got the 2x4?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And then what happened?
I just told him to put the taser gun away, and he picked up his phone and said he was calling the police. So when he did that, I got back in the truck and I asked Josh to get back in the truck, and he wouldn't listen. And then I told him I was going to leave, and he still wouldn't get in. So I left and went up to the school to get my son, and just waited until he came out and then got my son.
Who called the police?
I guess it was the people down there at the corner where we were at when they were jumping around out there.
When who was jumping around?
The defendant here, Josh.
What about you jumping around with the 2x4?
I just got out with the 2x4 and just told him that he better put the taser away, and I got right back in the truck. Wasn't jumping around out there making, Well, I mean, I just did it for him, actually, because I didn't want him to get tased or what, I mean, I wouldn't have got out to begin with. It wouldn't have had any of this problem,
But then you left him there.
Exactly.
With the guy.
I didn't want to.
Just a second. You left him there with the guy.
Yeah, I know, but I made exactly. But I made sure that he put the taser away.
Where did he put it?
I don't know. He put it in his pocket. Well.
All right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Henry Robichon says his neighbor's son, 17-year-old Joshua Farley, punched his truck. Joshua and his parents are countersuing for an assault.
So now the incident is over, and you're back home. You called young Mr. Farley. Why?
Because I was mad that he didn't get back in the truck when I asked him to, so we wouldn't have all this hassle, because he was making a scene in front of my son's school, and I know the parents there and everything. I didn't want to make a big scene earlier, and that all happened.
Why did you not get back into the truck?
I was already on the phone with 911 too, because as soon as he called, I called too, because I felt that was the right thing to do.
Who called? The other man?
The other man, yes, Your Honor.
Did Mr. Robichon see you call the police?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Robichon see the other man call the police?
Yes, ma'am.
He did?
Yes.
And then he left?
Yes.
So you stayed because you had called 911?
Yes.
Did you tell that to Mr. Robichon when you came over to his house?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he say?
For what? Why did you call 911?
And what did you say?
Because I felt that was the right thing to do. After getting weapons drawn on and everything, I felt that was the right thing to do, so I wouldn't get in trouble. So the cops knew what really went on. They heard my side of the story.
Okay. And what did Mr. Robichon say to you?
He goes, that was stupid. I mean, you should have just got in the truck when I told you to get in the truck and left.
And then what happened, Mr. Farley?
I said, no, I'm not like that. I was raised to, if something happens, call the police and do it.
Is that what you told him, or is that what you're telling me?
That's what I told him.
Go ahead.
And then we started arguing. I said, forget about it, I'm leaving. I walked out his front door and slammed the front door behind me.
So this is in his house?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And then he came outside screaming out, why'd you slam my door? I was like, what the heck? I was trying to get away from the situation. And then we started arguing. I walked towards his front porch, and then we started...
Why did you walk back towards his front porch for?
To ask him for the money he owes me and the dirt bike he promised me for the work I did. And he said no, and he punched me. So I turned around and yelled for my father and my mother to come down, and he started walking toward me, so I got off and I hit his truck.
I didn't ask you anything. You have a medical record?
No, ma'am, I did not get enough time.
What do you mean you didn't have the time?
By the time I figured out the date and everything, they wanted 30 days in order to get the paperwork to me.
You have a picture of your eye?
Nope, the Kaiser Permanente Hospital has all the pictures. They're the one that took the pictures of me.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Farley, can you describe what you saw when your son came home that day from Mr. Robichon's house?
I met my son at Mr. Robichon's house. His hand was bleeding, his eye was swollen.
His hand was bleeding?
His hand was
His hand
bleeding.
was bleeding from punching Mr. Robichon's truck?
From him punching the truck, yes, ma'am. And his eye was swollen, and they were still yelling at each other, so I got between them.
And
asked them to stop. My husband was on the phone with the police, that the police would take care of it when they got there.
All right, Mr. Robichon, now tell me your version of the events after you called him to come over.
That's right. Yeah, he came over and came in, and I just asked him why he didn't just get in the vehicle so we wouldn't have a big scene there and make a big scene in my son's school.
Have the police contacted you yet?
No, they left a card on my door.
Well, that's a contact, sir.
Yeah.
They didn't speak to you, but the police had left a
card on the door. So when I came home...
So you had to call the police?
Yeah.
Now, after you got the card from the police is when you called Mr. Farley?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
And told him to come over because now they were making a big deal out of this road rage incident.
Exactly.
Right? And you didn't want to have any part of it.
Right.
Right. So you called him to come over. And what did you say to him? You said, why didn't you get back in the car? And he said, because I had already called the police. Go ahead.
And then he goes, don't yell at me. I said, I'm not yelling at you. And then he asked me...
Well, you were yelling at him.
Not really yelling.
Not really is not yelling
well, I mean,
at him. You were yelling
my voice,
at him.
I probably told him...
Right now, you were involved in a road rage incident.
Well, I guess so.
And felt that because he stayed there to speak to the police and make this whole thing not go away, you were going to have interaction with the police, which is something that you clearly didn't want to have, which is why you left in the first place, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Of course it's true. That's common sense. So you were yelling at him.
Well, maybe I was upset. Yeah, sure, maybe a little bit.
You were. And then what happened?
He went out the door, slammed the door, and I went right out after him and told him, I said, why'd you slam my door? I'm going to act like an idiot.
How did his eye get swollen and bleeding?
Because he swung at me. And, well, he swung at me and I blocked his punch, and he hit himself in the face.
He hit himself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was...
He hit himself?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. It bounced, you know, his hand bounced off my hand. And...
Take your hands out of your pockets. How old are you? Uncross your hands. How old are you?
41.
He's 17. Your responsibility as the adult when you invite a minor into your car is to behave in an appropriate way.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't, sir. First of all, you left late to pick your son up from school.
I didn't leave late to pick up my son from school.
Yes, you did.
I did not.
Oh, I think you did. I think
you
did.
It's baloney. You're not even listening to my story.
I listened to your whole story. Your story doesn't make sense.
Well, excuse me, maybe I was a little nervous and didn't say it right, but I know for a fact I wasn't late, and
Mr. Robichon, you cut off a car
by accident.
You cut off a car by accident.
Yeah, by an accident.
With a minor in the car. There's no question in my mind that you were speeding. With a minor in the car, you took out a 2x4, which is a dangerous weapon, from your car.
Well, the guy had a taser gun. What, is he want me to just let him tase him?
Do you have a cell phone, Mr. Robichon? My question to you is a simple one.
Yes, I do, but I didn't have it with me.
That requires a yes or a no. I don't believe it.
You don't?
No, I don't believe you didn't have your cell phone
He
with
didn't.
you. Put your
Wasn't
hand
on.
down.
His phone was
Put
not
your
turned
hand
on.
down. And there are lots of other cars there. So if you don't have your phone, you don't run out with a 2x4. You run up to a car and you say, please, I don't have my cell phone. Could you please call 911? What
Well,
you did, hey, Mr. Robichon, you didn't act like a responsible adult that day.
Yes, I
You
did.
Well, you think you did. I say you didn't. I win, you lose. Your
That's
case
fine,
is dismissed, and
whatever.
I'm awarding him $500 on the counterclaim. Thank
Later.
you. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
While he's not excused, you may step out.
Why am I upset? Because I'm right.
I mean, I think it was very fair.
No, I have no comment.
He did what he did, and that's what he gets.
And now the next case. George Cardenas is suing the mother of his child, 22-year-old Jennifer Aguilera, for the return of his electronic equipment and bedroom furniture.
Mr. Cardenas, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were in a relationship as young teenagers. You made a baby, and then you moved in with the defendant's parents, where you lived for how many years?
Beginning of 2005, so about 3 years, three plus years.
3 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And then things didn't work out, and you moved out when, sir?
August of 08.
And it is your claim that Miss Aguilera won't give you back things that you purchased while you were in the house.
Correct.
Like what things?
There's a digital camera, a video recorder, a 46-inch plasma TV, a Dell computer, and bedroom furniture.
Okay. Now, Miss Aguilera says that all these things were purchased from a joint account and paid for from a joint account. So she said, this isn't your property, it's our property because it was paid for from a joint account. Miss Aguilera says that when you left, you cleaned out that joint checking account and took several $1,000s.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And
Yeah, which I've given all back and more.
just a second, Mr. Cardenas, when did you give it back?
Throughout the past 8-7 months
Show
to
me.
help you out. Right here.
No. I'm not talking about payments that you made for child support.
No. Child support comes straight out of my check. This
How
is
about
straight out of my
childcare?
bank account. Shh. This is straight out of my bank account to her account. It says to Jennifer Aguilera. I highlighted them all in orange right for you.
Just a second. All right, listen. Two people decide to play house. We don't have courts for people playing house. I tell you that right now. And I tell you, I'm not going through your bank account to see who put in what to what, because as far as I'm concerned, you're not married. There are no courts for people who aren't married. You decide to set up housekeeping, and there are no rules. You worry about it afterwards, not me. You're not going to waste court time with this nonsense, and I have no intention of going through a 3-year relationship to see who put what money into what account. Do you understand? You get it?
Got
Do you
it.
understand that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Your
Now, the
Honor,
next thing
all I'm asking is for
speaking,
her half. I'm sorry.
just a second. Listen to me carefully. You are paying for a credit card that's in your name.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, in our name. Yes,
No, just a minute. Who's paying for the furniture?
I am. For the
Who's
past
paying
8
for the
months.
furniture? Is not an answer.
Do you have a
bank
job?
right
No.
now?
She doesn't have a job.
Just
She doesn't have a
listen.
job.
Don't speak. Do you have a job?
No, ma'am, we do not.
You don't have a job.
No.
So you're not paying for the furniture,
Right.
right? He's coming to get the furniture. He's coming to get all those things in 5 days, Ms. Aguilera. Do you understand?
So we're supposed to sleep on the floor, me and
I don't
my
care.
daughter?
You know, get a job. You want furniture, get a job. But he's not going to pay for furniture for you. You're not his wife. The only thing he's responsible to pay for is his child. And he says that child support is coming right out of his check. Is the child support coming right out of his check?
I assume so. I'm getting it. I don't know where it's coming from.
No, it's coming from the child support genie. It's coming out of his check. And he's coming within 5 days to pick up all of his stuff, his furniture, his camcorder. What else?
The TV,
I don't have
a
any
computer.
of that camcorder or whatever he's talking about. I have the bed, the TV.
Fine.
And the computer?
The TV was paid off with my financial aid from school.
Do you go to school?
Yes, ma'am.
How many classes do you take in a week?
Right now I'm taking 2. Last 2 classes I need to get into the nursing program at my school.
How many years do you have total?
Shh. You want to ask her questions? Go outside.
Yes, ma'am. And the computer?
Do you have the computer?
No,
How-
it's broken. He
the-
can take it.
Just
whatever.
fine.
It's broken.
Computer's
have it.
broken?
You can have it.
Computer's broken? I'd
You can
like
have
the
it.
value of it.
Mr. Cardenas, it's yours. Go there within 5 days and get your property. There's no reason for you to pay for this stuff if you don't have it. But you obligated yourself to pay for it, put it on a credit card. If you're still paying on the credit card, you're entitled to the property.
Your Honor,
and
what
you're
if-
going to go and get it. Do you understand? 5 days, I'll prepare
Your
the
Honor.
order. That's all. Your counterclaim's dismissed, madam.
While he's not excused, you may step
Michael and Robin Thompson claim former neighbor Suzanne Statham owes for harassment and vandalism to their car. Suzanne is countersuing, claiming Michael vandalized her front lawn.
Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you rented a house in a neighborhood where Mrs. Statham has been a homeowner for many, many years. According to your complaint, for some strange reason, she didn't like you and your family from the beginning and created a situation that ultimately ended in your moving from the house. You are suing her for filing false charges with Child Protective Services, vandalism, and for harassment. Ms. Statham says that while she acknowledges that she called Child Protective Services, she believes she had good cause to do that. And with regard to the vandalism, she said she would never vandalize your car. However, she has proof that you did vandalize her property, and she is counterclaiming. When did you move into this house?
January 2004.
And how many people moved into the house?
5.
Yourself and 3 children?
Yes.
How old are your 3 children?
5, 10, and 16.
Boys, girls?
2 oldest are boys, youngest is a girl.
Okay, so tell me about the first confrontation that you had, allegedly, with Ms. Statham with regard to these false charges with Child Protective Services.
The first was February 2004.
Is that correct, Ms. Statham?
I called. I don't remember exactly when I called.
Fine. Tell me why you called Child Protective Services.
I was concerned.
Well, tell me what made you concerned.
The reason I was concerned is because they would not be there when the boy came home.
Which boy?
It's the oldest boy. I was concerned about his well-being.
Well, tell me what made you concerned.
Because he was left out.
What do you mean left out?
They wouldn't be home when he came home from school. When it was bad weather, he'd be outside, sitting on the porch. I'd let him use my phone to call whomever, and they would come home and let him in.
Yes.
Then he told me that he was living in a tent in the backyard.
Yes.
Sleeping there.
When he said he was sleeping in a tent in the backyard, was the connotation his parents didn't let him in the house?
I kind of, felt sorry for him. I did. I felt like it was, I don't know. He just told me, quote unquote.
No. That's they didn't say. Well, I sleep in a tent in the backyard. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
No.
That Miss Statham, that didn't happen. If you were having a conversation with him and you were talking to him about other things, and he may have said, "I sleep in the backyard in a tent. That's my own private space. I like it back there." That sounds more logical to me. Is that what happened?
Well, he told me that he was living in a tent in the backyard, and he liked it. And I said, well, isn't it cold back there?
And what did he say?
And he says, oh, I've got a lot of covers.
Yeah.
Okay, and there were so many nights that he was out late at night playing basketball that I heard him. And I was just concerned that he was out at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Well, yeah, it's pretty snoopy. Shh. I'm just telling you, that's pretty snoopy. We're talking about a 16-year-old boy being out at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and saying to you that I sleep in a tent in the backyard and I sleep under covers and I'm very happy. Do you have teenage children?
I've had teenage children.
Did they ever do anything that was bizarre?
Oh, yes, they did.
A lot of things that are bizarre.
Okay.
Well, and now if they want to go out in the backyard and sleep in a teepee or in a tree house, you're just lucky that they don't want their own condo.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then I did say something, as far as I raised my children alone, and I latchkey kids had keys, and I mentioned it to Mr. Thompson.
What did you say to him?
I said, like, if they're going to be latchkey